Tag TV, and Tag Radio. Technology now has a voice of innovation and information. Get it on www.tagtvonline.com. Electricity from sunlight. The U.S. Department of Energy proclaims mission critical to achieve the intersection of high efficiency and low cost, to redefine the manufacturing process for silicon solar cells that would reduce the cost of ownership to meet that of conventional grid power. For that vision to become reality, innovative leadership must take on the challenge to create, albeit discover, the process that would combine a reduction in raw material consumption and enhance cell efficiency. To achieve this vision to its full potential, eventually without subsidies, the technology must ultimately be cost-effective to compete with baseload electricity pricing, not just peak load pricing. The Solar American Initiative. Greetings, everyone. It's Tuesday, April 28th, 2009, and this is Tech Talk with Technology Association of Georgia President Tino Mantella. I'm your guest host, Frank Baia. Evolving from the work of a Georgia Tech professor at the Institute Center of Excellence in Photovoltaics in 1992, what is now considered the premier site for silicon PV research in the United States, began the origin of Atlanta-based Suniva, the pioneering developer and manufacturer of silicon photovoltaic cells for earth-friendly power generation. Suniva's mission: to implement and execute its proprietary PV technology roadmap to achieve leadership in high PVC device efficiency at low manufacturing cost. Already reaching world acceptance for its pioneering proprietary innovations, Suniva is now expanding a large manufacturing facility to reach its goal, making crystalline solar PV cost-effective around the globe without incentives or subsidies. Putting the light of both expertise and real-world experience on the solar industry's future is John W. Baumstark, Suniva Chairman and CEO. With over 2 decades of technology experience in early and late-stage public-private companies, John was most recently operating partner at HIG Ventures. Prior to HIG, John was responsible for overseeing global operations of IBM's Master Data Management Server Unit. A former president and CEO of a leader in customer data integration software, DWL, under his leadership, that company became one of the fastest-growing technology organizations in North America and was acquired by IBM in 2005. A series of proven successes mark his stellar career, including COO of Tradex, acquired in 2000 by Ariba for $5.6 billion, and at Infidium Software, we helped that company to grow to over $100 million in revenues, led a successful initial public offering, and acquired 2 companies. Building the future of solar cell industry, renewable energy, and Georgia's role in the revolution that has already begun in earth-friendly energy power generation, as we meet John Baumstark, Chairman, CEO, Suniva. John, welcome to Tech Talk.
Thank you, Frank.
Well, John, there's been years of talk about solar energy, and I think we've seen peaks and valleys over the last few years in terms of the industry. But let's maybe just kind of center on the subject of solar cells. Suniva is a solar cell company. Explain a little bit about that technology.
Okay, well, you've probably seen a solar panel on a rooftop somewhere along the way, and in that solar panel there's a collection of 60 or so black squares. They look like 6-inch black squares. Those are the solar cells, and that's what Suniva manufactures. And those cells are what convert the sunlight into a continuous flow of electricity. And by creating that, we're able to help generate the power. So if you think about Intel and the chips that they're producing to go inside of computers, it's the chip that actually makes the computer work. You can think of Suniva the same way. It's the Suniva cell inside of that panel that enables it to produce the electricity.
Well, I mentioned in the introduction the word proprietary. Is there something unique about the Suniva approach?
Yes, you mentioned it a little bit in your intro as well, that Suniva produces cells which are high in efficiency but are low cost to manufacture. And in the industry, you have businesses that either focus on high efficiency but they're expensive to manufacture, or low cost, but they don't yield high efficiency, which means they can't produce a whole lot of electricity. Suniva's approach enables both high efficiency and low cost, and we believe that the intersection of those two is the key to really getting mass market adoption for solar.
When you say mass market adoption, maybe go into a little bit about that. I mean, I'm going to guess that there's an infrastructure and a lot of acceptance that needed to be accomplished prior to the market really maturing out to its full potential, or maybe give us a little bit about how that's evolving.
Well, the challenge with solar has been the cost, and over the years, the cost has been dropping dramatically, and most recently we've seen some very aggressive price drops, and we've seen improvements in technology, especially from companies like Suniva, and we're now in many markets in the world at grid parity, and what we mean by that is that it's about the same cost to produce electricity from Suniva solar cells than it is from a coal-fired plant or from a gas plant that a typical utility would have. So we're at the point now where solar is very viable. The sun shines virtually everywhere every day. It's free. There's no noise pollution. There's no air pollution. It really is the perfect solution for generating power.
Well, I mean, you know, when we talk about idealism and the understanding of the sun and the free energy capture, it seems to be a no-brainer, but I'm guessing there's a lot of infrastructure. I mean, things that have to be transformed before certain things can be adopted. Do you see more of you being an evangelist and spreading that word, or is it a case where more and more companies are looking for that solution in order to remain competitive?
Well, I think it's a little bit of both. I think there's been a lot of proof points. If you look at the German market, for example, Germany is the world's leader in solar today, yet their climate is similar to Seattle, so not the sunniest environment that you would think of, yet they've been able to generate more solar electricity and have greater adoption than anywhere else in the world, which other companies have followed their lead. You see a lot in Europe right now. The U.S. ultimately will be the largest solar market given the abundance of sunshine that we have, and we really now, especially under the Obama administration, are starting to see that adoption. So I think it's a great time for it. From an infrastructure standpoint, the beautiful thing about solar is that the power can be consumed right where it's generated. So while it can be connected into the grid, and in some cases there may be some infrastructure required, in places like India, where we're generating power today for some towns and for some villages in India, the power can be consumed right there without any grid infrastructure whatsoever.
How big is Suniva now? I mean, and also maybe just some general idea of what you're forecasting for your own growth.
Well, Suniva today is, we have about 80 employees. We have our first manufacturing line that's up and running. We went into production in October of 2008. Our second production line, which will be twice the size of our first production line, will start installing next month, which will give us approximately 100 megawatts of capacity. And if you put that into perspective, that's about enough power that we can generate from the cells that we produce to power about 25,000 homes.
Is there a limitation to the manufacturing process? What kind of raw materials do you have to be sensitive, or are you sensitive to raw materials? Is there anything that kind of contains you or operates sort of as a border that says we can only do this much volume?
Well, no, actually, Suniva's technology is based on a semiconductor material known as silicon. So it's one of the most abundant, in fact, perhaps the second most abundant substance. It comes from sand, so it's one of the most abundant substances on the planet. So
when you talk about capacity, I guess it's just supply and demand at this point and managing the operation from just a cost-effectiveness standpoint?
Sure. It's building the plants and having the manufacturing equipment capable, and then obviously matching that with the demand that's out there, which has been growing very fast. The solar market has been growing very rapidly.
What's the turnaround implementation from the time an order is made? Do you actually custom manufacture, or is there products that you like online, line of products that you sell, or is it a customization whenever you get involved in a particular situation?
We produce the solar cells. The cells, again, go into the modules. And so at the module manufacturer level, they will tailor for
Okay. So the process is you're doing the cells, and then the next step is the actual person that's putting the cells into the actual unit that gets installed.
That's right. And our objective is to continually improve our product to enable that same 6-inch square that I described. We want to get as much power as possible out of that, because the more power we get out, the fewer panels that are necessary to generate the power, which saves glass, aluminum, electrical components, all of those sorts of things all reduce the price of generating the electricity.
Well, in one way you make it sound so simple, and again, I know that's because of your guys' background and experience and technology capabilities, but I guess the exciting part is much like the silicon chip. I mean, you've got we've got an opportunity to kind of be one of the world leaders. I guess most people probably don't even know that you built your first factory here in Norcross. What's that about? Is there a reason here for Atlanta specifically? I guess maybe it's partly to stay close to Georgia Tech, or is there other factors?
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. So for the first factory, we really wanted to be close to Georgia Tech. The company spun out of Georgia Tech, and with one of the best research facilities in the world, we wanted to be as close as possible to that, and it's proven to be a huge competitive advantage for us. As a young company, we were able to have access to, again, one of the best research facilities, and from day one of forming the company, we had access to lab and equipment and professionals who could help us advance our technology and get it to market. Once we started installing our manufacturing equipment, having the lab with commercial scale equipment in it and being able to troubleshoot our own manufacturing equipment right down the road at Georgia Tech helped us accelerate, and we believe we got up and running in one of the shortest time periods ever in terms of commissioning a solar cell plant. So the relationship has been fantastic, both from a research perspective, but also in getting the manufacturing equipment up and running. And in addition, I'd mention that the state and local officials were very welcoming and very eager to help, and
Sure.
Put together a program that made it very exciting and worthwhile to stay in the local community.
Well, with that in mind, do you see an economic development impact, not just an economy impact, but actually do you see the prospect of sort of a cluster of other opportunities or other businesses stemming from you being located here in Atlanta?
Absolutely, and we see already local suppliers. We ship all over the world, and shipping materials, packing materials, we are buying from local suppliers. Chemical companies are supplying us. From a job standpoint, we've hired, we're about 80 employees today. We just recently hired 25 employees, and next month we'll be hiring an additional 25 employees. So it's having a big impact, and the ecosystem that supports the company all around us creates further jobs. So we look forward to attracting other solar companies to the region as well, because the more companies we have, the greater impact we'll have on the ecosystem, the more companies that will get formed around. And Georgia is a great place to locate, great airport, great access anywhere in the world.
Well, that's really exciting because not only are you obviously on a quote-unquote bleeding edge, as they say, in terms of a particular technology and a new industry, but also a historic opportunity for the city and the state to become a leader in the overall industry as it builds its future. I think that's pretty exciting in its own right. But let's cover just real quickly as we our time is beginning to get short, but let's talk a little bit about the new administration. Obviously, they have put a lot of faith in renewable energy. Maybe go into a little bit about that, and also touch on if you think solar will be an important part of Georgia's power mix.
I'll take that one first. So Georgia has terrific potential for solar. I'm looking out my window today, and the sun is shining, and it's a beautiful day, and Georgia gets almost as much sunshine as anywhere, but probably the southwestern U.S. So I think Georgia has tremendous potential for solar. If you think back to the 1996 Olympics, on the natatorium, the rooftop of the natatorium, at the time, that was the largest rooftop installed solar system in the world, and it's worked beautifully since the 1996 Olympics. There's data every day showing how much sunlight's been captured there, and it's phenomenal. So we know solar works in Georgia. It's been proven. It's been working here for a long time. Again, I mentioned Germany earlier. Germany's the largest market, and I'm in Germany all the time, and it's usually not sunny when I'm in Germany, but that's the beauty of PV. People think it only works when the sun is shining. It works as long as you have some sunlight. So, but that's a terrific market as well. Now we'll jump to the administration. The Obama administration has stepped up and said, look, we've talked about doing things, and we've talked about energy independence and energy security and climate change for a long time. We're going to do something about it. So they've taken some bold steps already, and I think we'll continue to see them take some bold steps forward that will ensure we take advantage of this great resource that we have in the U.S. And it's not just solar. I think there'll be other forms of renewable energy that we'll see. But lots of exciting things that are happening. We've announced a deal locally with Jacoby Development, And I think the Jacoby deal further highlights a great opportunity for the state. They have a new project that they're developing next to Hartsfield Airport. There'll be a significant amount, multiple megawatts of solar that will be installed there. And I look forward to the point when visitors from all over the world flying in from Atlanta will see arrays and arrays of solar panels, and we'll see not only that solar works in Georgia, but it's being implemented and it's having a big impact on the region.
Well, it's pretty exciting. I think the scope and the prospects, I mean, we can all not only envision them, but actually see the inevitability of all of this coming together. Is there anything else in terms of what might be on the horizon, as far as Suniva is concerned, that you haven't really already covered?
Well, I think you're going to see some great growth out of the company. We have some very exciting things in the lab, so look for technology advances coming forward. And the U.S. market is here, and it's here to stay, and it will end up being the world's largest market. And we think being a domestic supplier puts us in a great position to capture a very large portion of that. And as we capture more of that, that will mean more growth right here at home and creation of more jobs and hopefully a bigger economic impact on the state. So,
well, I guess the response is wow. John, what a great opportunity for you. What a great leadership role to be able to be taking. Obviously being part of the historic building, the future of the solar cell industry. I mean, again, right here coming out of Atlanta, Suniva. We've been visiting with John Baumstark, the chairman and CEO of Suniva. John, thanks a lot for joining us today on Tech Talk.
Thank you, Frank.